Hey guys, Josh back again, and it's been a little while since I've done a Star Wars review, so I thought it was about time that I fixed that. So I'm finally going to keep my promise and I'm going to review Lost Stars. I said probably 2 or 3 weeks ago that I was going to read it and reviewed it, and I just got kind of burned out. I had just read Aftermath, and then Smuggler's Run, and then Moving Target, and I've been reading all the comics, so I just kind of burned out on a little bit, but after watching the trailer the other day, it got me kind of re-energized, so I picked it back up, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited for that review. But before we do that, first I want to talk about Chewbacca number 1, Shattered Empire number 3 and 4, and Darth Vader number 11. So if you haven't read those comics, and you haven't read Lost Stars, and you want to avoid any spoilers, you're going to want to skip this video and come back later, because everything I say from this point forward is going to be a spoiler. Okay, starting off with Chewbacca number 1. I really enjoyed this comic. First of all, the art is very different from all the other art in all of the other Star Wars comics. There's a lot of pastels in this, which is very different, and I enjoyed that. It made it kind of a different vibe. It kind of reminds me of Groot, actually. If you're not reading Groot, seriously, check it out. It's a really good comic. But it reminds me a lot of Groot, because first, Groot only says, "I am Groot," and Chewbacca only says, "Ah!" So there's that similarity, this kind of, you know, lost in translation, trying to figure out what he's trying to say, and having somebody assume he's saying one thing, but then he's not saying something else. And the story is really good. We meet a little girl named Zaro, and Zaro and her father are in what is effectively a debtor's prison. It's just working in the mines. But her dad gets her out, he kind of smuggles her out, and she escapes, and she's going everywhere looking for anybody to help her, until she finally runs into Chewbacca, and she's like, "Hey, you're big and scary, will you help me?" And he's like, "Rah!" And she's like, "Awesome!" But he's saying no. So through the course of the comic, she's just talking to him, and eventually she guilts him into helping her by saying, "Wow, you must really love the Empire. Don't you know don't you have any idea what it's like to be a slave?" And that really sets him off, and he's like, "Rah!" And then, like, "Let's do it." And man, I kind of feel bad for the local crime lord, because that dude's in trouble. Really good comic. I highly recommend reading Chewbacca. It's really fun, really good story, and the art, like I said, is really good. Moving on to Shattered Empire number 3. Of course, Shattered Empire, if you're not familiar with it, it follows immediately after Return of the Jedi, and in the months following that. And it's everything Aftermath should have been. This issue centers still primarily around Princess Leia and Shara, who is Poe Dameron's mom, and the Queen of Naboo. Naboo is still blockaded by the Empire due to Operation Cinder, and that's basically the Emperor is trying to just make sure any artifacts or information or whatever that he had built up about the Force, about the Jedi, about the Sith, all of that, make sure that doesn't fall into the wrong hands. So Naboo is under blockade from this super weapon that's causing all of these storms. So the princess and Shara and the Queen of Naboo, they go into like an old hangar in Theed, the capital city of Naboo, where they had basically stored some old antique starfighters after the Empire had disarmed all the planets. They kept some aside just in case. And the princess and Shara and the Queen of Naboo, they go up there and they clean house. But my favorite part of this issue was actually one panel, and it's when they go into this old hangar, and it's the hangar where the doors opened and Darth Maul was there, and she just goes, "I feel cold," and it has Darth Maul's eyes, and it's just this hint at Princess Leia's Force sensitivity. Oh god, it was awesome. If you haven't read Shattered Empire and you're watching this video, go out right now and get it. It's 4 issues long, it's over now, it's beginning, middle, and end, it's done. So go out and pick up these issues. They're fantastic. I think the graphic novel is actually coming out in like 2 weeks too. It's coming out really fast, so if you want to wait for that, seriously though, read it. Moving on to Shattered Empire number 4, we finally get some Luke Skywalker in Shattered Empire, which is great because I was wondering where he was. And this is a really interesting finale to this series because there's some mystery to it. Luke is taking Shara on a mission, and his mission is to get the tree that was in the center of the Jedi temple on Coruscant. It's been taken and hidden away on this Imperial outpost, and so he's figured out where it is, and he's going to get it. So we don't know how he's figured it out. We don't even know that how he knew that the tree still existed, or that there was a tree ever. We don't know how he got any of that information. I assume we're going to find that out later, probably through the comics. But as of right now, we don't know that information. So that shroud of mystery is really interesting. So when they get there, the tree has actually been broken into two individual branches. So he's like, well, I didn't know there was two. So at the end of the issue, he lets Shara keep one. So she has a piece of the tree that she goes and plants with her husband and Poe after she retires from the rebellion. So I don't know if this tree is going to come into play in The Force Awakens. I think it's probably not, but you just don't know. And also the fact that Luke went to find this tree, and the tree from the Jedi Temple, this theory that, Luke is turning to the dark side in The Force Awakens, or he has turned to the dark side, I think this points away from that. So I'm thinking that theory is becoming less viable. And to finish off the comics, Darth Vader number 11. Out of all the Star Wars comics, this would be the one to read if you're only going to read one of them. It is absolutely amazing. We have a new character in this series, Dr. Aphra, and she is really cool. She has these two droids, BT and 000, and 000, he reminds me a lot of HK from KOTOR, but like if HK had 3PO's frame. So he looks a very innocent protocol droid, but he's totally down for killing some folks. And Vader is hell-bent on discovering the identity of the person who blew up the Death Star, because he's super strong in the Force, and he blew up the Death Star, and he has this kind of feeling. And just the process of Vader's investigation is really interesting. And Dr. Aphra is by far my favorite new character in the new canon. It's kind of far into it, it's 11 issues in, but I think the first trade just came out. So you can get the first trade and then catch up on the comics. Seriously, if you're going to read one Star Wars comic, Darth Vader's the one to read. Okay, finally, Lost Stars. I'm really sorry it took me so long to finish this one, but like I said, I just kind of got burned out and I had to put it down for a little while. But I finished it today and I really enjoyed this book. Our two main characters, Sienna and Thane, are very interesting, multi-dimensional characters, and the story is great. It's very engaging, it's a very fast read. It's a young adult novel, and it does read very much like a young adult novel. What I liked most about the book, though, was getting some insight into the Imperials and where individual Imperials came from. Thane and Sienna, their dream is to be Imperial officers, and so they work all through school, and they get into the Imperial Academy on Coruscant, and they become officers. But then after the destruction of Alderaan, Sienna, she kind of sees, well, let's do this and maybe prevent a war. But Thane is like, my God, they just murdered billions of people. I can't work for them. So these two people who were close their entire lives are now at odds. And that dynamic was really, really interesting. And we get a lot of looks at iconic moments in the original trilogy. The destruction of the Death Star, the Battle of Hoth, the destruction of the second Death Star, and we actually get to see the Battle of Jakku, which of course comes into play in the next movie, which is really exciting. My only problem with the book, though, is Claudia Gray, I think, tried to cram too much into one book. I think this would have done better as a trilogy, because it follows Sienna and Thane as little children all the way through the destruction of the second Death Star and the Battle of Jakku. So it covers a lot of time, and the fact that it covers so many different things, it doesn't get to spend enough time with any one thing and really give it the treatment that I think it deserved. For instance, the Battle of Endor, I felt like that as I was reading that it was only just a couple of pages long. I'm like, wow, that was really fast. Like, I actually had to stop and went, that should have been, I stopped and I thought that should have been more. So I think if this had been broken into a trilogy, or even just two books, I think she could have spent more time in these individual moments and fleshed out some characters a little better. Like Sienna, she has this very strict honor code, and it causes a major conflict within her with seeing all these atrocities that the Empire is committing, but then also she's made this oath to the Empire, and the worst thing she could possibly do is break her oath. And so I wanted to see her deal with that more. It was this kind of just constant nag, and they touched on it every once in a while, but I really wanted to spend some time with her inside dealing with that. Overall score 8 out of 10. I definitely recommend checking it out. It's a very good read, very fast read. I enjoyed it a lot, and I think you will too. Okay, that's it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know by clicking the like button and subscribe for more reviews. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.